Trust is going down. Everyone is less trusting of each other. And people at the Telegraph are stumped as to how. How could this happen?
Something happened.
Don't know what. Anyway, so I'll start off by promoting something on Lotus.com, being Hanna Pitkin's The Concept of Representation podcast we did, because, well, if you don't feel represented in literally any way whatsoever, happiness go down, trust go down. We'll get into why.
Are you telling me the bad line go down and the good line go down?
Amazing, isn't it?
Oh, terrible.
So if we go to the Telegraph article, this guy decided to write this. Trust is breaking down in Britain. It's a danger we can no longer ignore. Mr. Nick over here.
Are you going to mention exactly why that might be?
Well,
I bet he isn't.
he's figured it out.
Oh, okay, all right.
Research shows only 1 in 4 people believe they live in a safe area,
But why?
while half say they feel unsafe walking home at night.
But why?
This is all in part down to trust in the law, with only a quarter saying they have confidence in the police, but it is also down to how we feel about one another.
And what could have changed how we feel about one another and how the police administer the law?
We can summarise some of the reasons. The collapse in the trust in the police has followed several high-profile scandals, failure to uphold the law, and evidence of bigotry and corruption.
No, I don't think that's it.
No, yeah, I don't...
That's not it.
Yeah, it's that endless racism in the police we keep hearing about.
God, you know, when I'm walking at home alone at night, when I'm trying to get home from work, what I think to myself, God, I hope a bigoted police officer.
The cops might get me because I'm Irish.
Yep, that's what it is. You might have that trouble.
It's because you're Danish.
Thank you.
The long failure since the financial crash of Britain to return to healthy economic growth. Yeah, that's the reason we're collapsing as a trust society. Sure it is.
I mean, yeah, like bad economic policy right now isn't helping. That might not be it.
Might not be the main reason. And the resulting fall in living standards, higher taxes, and struggling services, why are they struggling, makes people more guarded and less generous with what they have. Now, Japan has never recovered financially since 1995.
But they're doing all right, though.
For some reason, something didn't happen in the 1990s for them.
Something didn't happen.
And because something didn't happen, they have unbelievable high levels of trust, even though their economy is as crap as it's been for about 25 years.
I can't put my finger on it.
No, a quarter century of basically no growth in GDP, but yet high trust because something didn't happen.
Is there a graph that might...
No, I have a video instead.
Oh, all right, okay.
Because I remember seeing one about Japan where you could walk in even big cities and there are cafes with no staff. You just make your own things and then leave the money.
You know, it used to be like that.
Pretty high trust.
I don't know the book it's from, but it used to be like that in England as well. Literally, the banks used to work in such a way in England that they would just display the gold that they had on offer, not in a vault, just in the public, no protection of glass, no security guards.
Oh, you need it.
And people would just go in, take a look at the gold, pass the gold around, and put it back.
Well, anyway, there's someone who's made a video representation of the United States versus Norway in this regard, just to demonstrate why trust might be going down in the West. So we have a chap here in Norway who is showing you multiple stores in which there are no staff, not even security guards.
Yep.
You just go in, buy the stuff, leave it, no problems. And we have some other chaps here who are eating for free in Walmart.
But, I mean, don't you feel bad for that guy on the left?
I don't know. I feel like the culture on the right is far superior. That's where I want to live.
Look at how much he's not been enriched.
He's miserable, I'm sure.
It's terrible.
We'll go back to Nick, though, because the author of that article is getting to me. He's born in Birmingham in the 1980s, chief of staff for Theresa May. He was also there for the Birmingham Trojan horse scandal. Do you remember what that was?
No, I don't remember what that one was.
It turns out for decades, Islamists have been introducing Islamist ideas into the local schools. And these majority Muslim schools, because of course they're all ghettoized, were no longer teaching what the rest of the students were being taught in the country, but instead were just being taught Islamism.
Sounds like Birmingham to me.
Yeah. So a local group...
You mean there was a time before Islamist Birmingham?
Well, there was a group that held Trojan Horse or Trojan Hoax event in Birmingham, and he wrote to them to say, stop that, it makes you look like terrorists.
And they went, look like?
And it turned out the whole thing was true, obviously. There were teachers saying homosexuality deserves death. There were sex-segregated classes. The students were polled, and they had literally no knowledge of any other religion except Islam, which is not legal, for the obvious reason. And also, some schools made the students study outside whilst the Ofsted inspectors were there because they didn't want the Ofsted inspectors talking to the students, which is a beautiful sign of everything working.
You know, I think Roger Scruton might have mentioned this in one of his books where he points out there was a teacher who called all of this out and got fired for it.
My point being, powerful elitist over here who should know. I mean, if there's anyone who should know quite what might be destroying trust in Britain, he still isn't able to figure it out. I'm going to make a big for him, and we'll just get the next graph up so people can take a look at the graph. Still pains me. I don't know if you noticed, I couldn't be bothered to actually accurately do the last point. I just used paint. Just went, there you go.
Yeah, there you go. It's just a big line. The line goes up. Tom Harwood happy.
Yeah. No idea, I guess, though. But I thought we'd just check in with some supporters of this line. People
Immigration to the moon.
Literally, it is going to the moon. And people who love it going to the moon, should we check in with them? Well, Jess over here did some interviews with a bunch of members of the public. And their conclusion was that mass immigration is a punishment.
Oh, okay. Oh,
that's all. Well, it should hurt. Get used to it.
And I'm supposed to trust somebody who goes out in public with an awful mullet and elf ears.
And tells me I deserve to be punished because, I don't know, British Empire. I never actually read anything in history class. We know.
We never improved living standards in any of the places we colonised.
Very quickly, just going to check back in with that map I've mentioned many times. The ethnicity map in the UK, which is a beautiful tool. You can see here the map of Tower Hamlets, which for some reason you don't even need to see the borders of. You can just map where the Bangladeshis live, and the borders. I mean, it's weird. They kind of map themselves in the borders for some reason. Who knows why? But for some reason, that's all the Bangladeshis live within borders of Tower Hamlets. Naturally, I think it's a big invisible barrier if you're Bangladesh. You just try and poke it and you're just stuck forever. Presumably, that's how you end up with so many people of the same ethnicity living in the same place.
You can see it you can geolocate it using satellite imagery because of the wall of Bangladeshis banging on the barrier.
It's actually how the border is decided. Yeah. Man, the wizards of Camelot have done something terrible there. But we'll go to the next one because that's just a place where trust is not high. Let me just check in with another random place in the UK I found. Get the next link, please. If we can have it. There you are. Now, I'm sure this place in the north, salary, you want to know what the average salary around here is?
I was there a few weeks ago. It was a very trustworthy-looking place, to be perfectly honest.
Average full-time salary, you want to guess? 23 grand.
I was going to say, because this was in the Lake District, in one of the, honestly, the town it's in is not the most amazing town, although actually the part that you can access over the bridge is a lot nicer than the town it's attached to, but it didn't seem like a high-income area.
My point being, 0% diversity. I mean, literally, it is 100%, as you can see here, white, English, Welsh, Scottish, Northern Irish, or British in the results there. And you've been there. You've given us your thoughts on the level of trust.
It's really lovely.
I've been to Tower Hamlets many a time.
Nice little place.
I would not trust.
Well, I mean, you're the wrong colour to trust.
Yeah, maybe. So I thought we'd just check in with something I found. A relic. Folks, I come to you with something gold. The New York Times in 2007. Take a look at this. The downside of diversity by the New York Times. Did they publish
this by accident?
This is real. This is in the archive. I have found a unicorn, folks.
Oh my god. Somebody wrote an article for American Renaissance and sent it to the wrong email address.
I'm going to read. This is in 2007. And you would have thought lessons might have been learned. Nothing has been, obviously. But here's how bad it is. It has become increasingly popular to speak of racial and ethnic diversity as a civic strength. From multicultural festivals to pronouncements from political leaders, the message is the same. Our differences make us stronger. Before diversity is our strength. Not quite got round about saying that in 2007. But, it's a big but. The massive new study, based on detailed interviews of nearly 30,000 people across America, has concluded the opposite. The greater the diversity in a community, the fewer people vote, and the less they volunteer, the less they give to charity and work on community projects. In the most diverse communities, neighborhoods trust one another about half as much as they do in the most homogeneous settings.
So diversity actively breaks down trust in communities?
Yes, and the effects of it have never been put more beautifully than what I am about to read.
All right, okay.
Because I feel it myself in my own life. As people may have noticed, I've talked about it a lot. I used to live in an area when I was growing up that even to this day is 90% of one group, 95%, so homogeneous. And then I moved to university, and then I moved around to Reading, which I lived on the Oxford Road. Incredibly diverse. Probably one of the most diverse places in London. Not London, sorry. in the country, and then to Swindon, and I moved to one area that's 60% Indian, amazingly. And this place has been quite diverse as well. And I've never been able to put it down as to what this place makes you do, just as a natural response. But this guy did.
All right.
The study, the largest ever on civic engagement in America, found that virtually all measurements of civic health are lower in more diverse settings. The study comes at a time when the future of America's melting pot is the focus of intense political debate, from immigration to race-based admissions to schools, and it poses challenges to advocates on all sides of the issue. I still can't believe that was novel, like, they're promoting the idea we should discriminate against white people. Now, that's the norm now. But with the demographic trends already pushing the nation inextricably towards greater diversity, the real question may yet lie ahead: how to handle the unsettling social changes that Putnam's research predicts. That's amazing as well, just as a side note. There are all these problems, so should we stop and do something successful instead? No, let's just mitigate the problems.
Yep.
It's given us an inevitability.
What we should do is we should brainwash the native population into thinking everything is fine.
He says, we cannot ignore the findings. This is Ali Noormani, Executive Director of Massachusetts Immigrant and Refugee Advocacy Coalition, a proponent of mass immigration. Quote, the big question we have to ask ourselves is, what do we do about it? What is the next step? Well, I would have been to, admit that homogeneous societies have huge advantages, and we should probably preserve those advantages. The kind of buffs to the nation, stat buffs.
Well, this seems to me to be an article that's mainly addressed at, it's an article by managers for managers. Like you say, the managed decline. This is an article that the plebs weren't really supposed to pay much attention to.
It's not for visionaries. It's not for visionaries who are like, okay, well, there's the truth, there's the falsity, let's move on to the truth. Instead, it is how do we manage the mess up we've caused? The managed decline, as you say.
And part of what we're talking about here as well, when we say that this is brainwashing the public into just thinking it's okay. Part of that is changing the idea of the past. So when you hear phrases like the melting pot, somebody will try and tell you, oh, the melting pot was always part of the vision of America. No, it wasn't. Yep. America only opened its borders to more diverse immigration, shall we say, in 1965 with the Nationality and Immigration
It's not even diverse. If you have a look at a map of which country do immigrants to this state come from, you'll notice there's a plethora right up until about the 2000s when it just all becomes Mexican for the next 20 years.
Oh, yeah.
Amazing. Anyway, the study is part of a fascinating new portrait of diversity emerging from recent scholarship. Diversity, it shows, makes us uncomfortable. But discomfort, it turns out, isn't always a bad thing. Oh, great. I love my life getting worse. Unease with differences helps explain why teams of engineers from different cultural backgrounds may ideally be suited to solve a specific vexing problem. I love that. It's always given you that they're just doctors and engineers on the dinghies. After releasing its initial results in 2001, Putnam says he spent time kicking the tires really hard to be sure the study had it right. Putnam realised, for instance, that more diverse communities tended to be larger, have greater income ranges, higher crime rates, and more mobility among their residents, all factors that could depress social capital independent of any impact ethnic diversity may have. But even after statistically taking them all into account, the connection remained strong. Higher diversity meant lower social capital. Putnam writes that those in more diverse communities tended to, quote, distrust their neighbours regardless of colour of their skin, to withdraw even from close friends, to expect the worst from their community and its leaders, to volunteer less, give less to charity, and work on community projects less often, to register to vote less, to agitate for social reform more, but have less faith that it can actually make a difference, and to huddle unhappily in front of the television. God, I have never heard it been put better.
Beautifully put. Beautifully put.
People living in ethnically diverse settings appear to hunker down. That is, to pull in like a turtle, Putnam writes. 100% true.
All right, I mean, that's from them.
That's the feeling I've always had, especially in Reading. It makes you withdraw from society because you don't feel any connection to it. And on the weekend, I was at a friend's place, which is near Sandford, Gloucestershire, the meme place from Hot Fuzz, the heaven on earth that has a dark secret. And of course, in real life, the dark secret is the Thatcher's farm shop is there.
Oh, really?
It's wonderful.
Oh, lovely.
Anyway, but the place he is 0% diverse, and you can feel the difference on an unbelievable level.
Oh, once again, where I'm from, that I went back to over the weekend, is pretty much 0% diverse, or at least the place I was living before this. And it's lovely. You can walk down the street, you can have chats with strangers in the middle of the street. and everything feels nice.
I have a
Everything
real tough
feels
time.
homely.
Like, I think if we've talked about this, the one place in walking distance I can find English food is probably a couple of cafes that serve English breakfast, and that's it.
Yes.
Like, I don't know where there's a fish and chips place around here. I don't know where I can get pub food. That's to a good standard.
The only fish and chips that I've been to in Swindon since I moved here was owned by a Turkish man and was not very good and didn't even serve gravy as a side, so I was horrified.
In documenting that hunkering down, Putnam challenged the two dominant schools of thought on ethnic and racial diversity, the contact theory and the conflict theory. Under contact theory, more time spent with those of other backgrounds leads to a greater understanding and harmony between groups. Now, someone put to me the other day that when you meet people who have traveled the world, you assume that they would have the perspective,
ideas.
the perspective that everyone's basically the same. The more people travel, the less they have that opinion. So that theory is just
the
BS
more you
anyway.
come into contact with reality, the more it makes an effect on you.
But under conflict theory, that proximity produces tensions and discord. Putnam's findings reject both of the theories. In more diverse communities, he says, there were neither great bonds formed across group lines, nor heightened ethnic tensions, but a general civic malaise, and in perhaps the most surprising result of all, levels of trust were not only lower between groups in more diverse settings, but even among members of the same group. Again, I felt that myself. I've never been able to put it into words properly. This guy did in 2007.
It's important to point this out as well, that this research is basically illegal now. Because there was a recent statement from the Biden White House saying that if scientific journals conducted research that came out with, I forget the exact wording, basically non-pro-diverse conclusions from the research, you wouldn't get funding for it. If you were doing any sort of research that wasn't going to explicitly say, and this is why diversity is a good thing with the results, then you're not going to do it. And it's pretty much the same in the UK as well. These sorts of results were useful in the mid-2000s because the managers went, we've created this problem, how do we solve this problem? Now they've gone, we can't solve this problem, so we'll just make the research illegal.
You could have done the crossroads and didn't bother. So we'll end this off, we'll run out of complete time. But last thing here, just a quick fact from the UK, if we can go to the next link, please, which is from Matthew Goodwin. Quote, the claim that Brexit Britain is attracting the best and brightest is undermined by the fact that migrants are more likely than Brits to rely on social housing. This is free housing from the government, so my tax money. And then while British families are being forced to leave London, 40% of the rising number of sub-Saharan Africans who are living in London are now living in social housing in the capital. And the thing that amazes me about that is, I mean, it's so hard for someone outside of London to try and earn enough that they can even move to live there. Never mind then to climb the social ladder that is the place. But if you're a sub-Saharan African who comes to the UK, there's a 40% chance you just get it for free. You just get some free housing the government stole off us. It's actual madness.
Have you seen the dark buildings in Johannesburg in South Africa?
You mean the ones with no lighting and stuff?
Yeah, where it's basically just an open-air toilet.
Yeah.
The type of place. I imagine that a lot of buildings in London will end up like that after this is all done.
Presumably, because, well, I'll end it off there, because I don't know what to say. It's amazing that was in the New York Times at that time, and I'm amazed that guy managed to put in words like a feeling I've had that I've never been able to explain properly. If you appreciated that segment from the podcast The Lotus Eaters, you can go to lotuseaters.com to get access to all the premium content that's on the site, such as the Symposium series, this episode on the Stoicism of Epictetus. Anyway, if you'd like to find out what else is being put out, you can follow on Getter at lotuseaters_com on Getter. Thank you, and goodbye.